Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today I'm going to go through some of my anticipated releases for the first quarter of 2026 with you all. I have limited myself to 20 books in total because otherwise I would have a list a mile long and there's no way I'm ever going to get to all of them. I already know that some of these will eventually fall off of my radar, but right now I am really excited for all of them and I'm sure that I've missed some, so please feel free to add to my excitement by adding your own anticipated releases in the comments down below. Before I jump into my list of 20, I do want to give you guys almost honorable mentions, even though they're not, I am excited about them, but they're series continuations. And so I didn't necessarily want to spend a ton of time because you might not have read the first in the series. So I'm just going to throw them out there so you guys know that I am also excited for these series continuations. The first is To Ride a Rising Storm. This is the second book in the To Shape a Dragon's Breath series. I'm not sure exactly what the series title was, but I really enjoyed that book last year, so I'm excited to get to the next one. And then I also have Children of Strife, which comes out in March. Children of Strife is the fourth book in the Children of Time series. I'm currently on book 2, and so if I get to book 3 in February, which is what I currently plan, I should be caught up by the time Children of Strife comes out. And then the last series continuation that I will mention is the one I'm most excited for, and that is Wayward Souls. This book is the second book in the Strange Beasts series. Once again, I'm not sure exactly what the series title is, but it is a mystery duo, kind of fantasy horror mystery, and I had a great time with the two ladies that are sleuthing about in the first book, and so I'm excited to see the series continue. Moving on to the list of 20 that I have for you guys, I will separate these into genres and put some timestamps down below so you can skip around to the genres that you are used to or that you would like to hear the anticipated releases for. I do have way more in fantasy, and so I am going to split those into subgenres, but I also have some sci-fi and horror if you guys are interested in those as well. I'm going to move over to the side so I can display the picture of the books next to me. And I'm going to try and remember to tell you guys what month these are published in. I'm going to do my best. So the first book that I'm going to talk about was published in February. I couldn't find any general fantasy in January that I was really interested in. So I'm going to start with February, and this is a book called Strange Animals by Jared Anderson. This book is set to be published on the 10th of February, and I am really intrigued. I love a debut, which this is, a fantasy debut. I'm not sure if they've written other things. It says, an ordinary man discovers a hidden world of wondrous supernatural creatures and an unexpected home in this enchanting contemporary fantasy debut. I know that this man ends up walking into a street, tripping in front of a bus, I believe, and is saved by a massive fantastical creature that no one else seems to really notice or care about. And so he ends up somehow studying them, getting to know wherever they live. And I think going to that place, which it talks about like an unexpected home. But in all of this fantastical exploration, him looking into where these creatures came from, there is some type of a nefarious thing that is about as well that might destroy what he's come to love. So I don't want to read too much into it. Other than that, I am very excited about this. So fingers crossed that this one is a win. Moving on to the March fantasy releases, I have Daughter of Crows, which is by Mark Lawrence, and I don't actually know anything about this book. I just know that I want to read more by Mark Lawrence because I really loved the library series, which I have up here behind me. I am really excited to continue with his works, so let's find out together what this one's about. This says, set a thief to catch a thief. Set a monster to punish monsters. The Academy of Kindness exists to create agents of retribution. Cast in the image of the Furies, known as the Kindly Ones, against whom even the gods hesitate to stand. Each year, 100 girls are sold to the Academy. 10 years later, only 3 will emerge. It does say, like, one of the subcategories is dark academia, but I'm just going to call it general fantasy because I'm not exactly sure. It does sound obviously like it's going to have a magical school involved. So I'm really excited to get back to Mark Lawrence's work. I don't know if this is the next place I should go, but if I can get my hands on a copy, this will be the next series that I read by him. Speaking of returning to favorite authors, I do want to read more by Jen Lyons. Unfortunately, I did have a little bit of a hiccup with this author with Sky on Fire this past year. I really didn't enjoy it, but I absolutely loved Ruin of Kings and that whole series, and so I would like to give Jen Lyons another chance. This one is called Green and Deadly Things, and it comes out on March 3rd of 2026. This says, centuries ago, necromancy almost destroyed the world. That's how history remembers it. But history remembers it wrong. Math has trained his entire life to join the Sacred Order of some type of knights. Fantasy names abound in this. These knights are charged with defending their world from forces of necromancy. Only vestiges of that power remain. Nothing like the fabled days of the Grimlords, the undead wizards who nearly destroyed the world. But when an even stranger kind of monster begins to wake, the knights quickly prove powerless to stop them. Whole forests are coming alive and devouring anyone so foolish as to trespass, as if the land itself has turned upon humanity. It's a good thing, then, that the Grimlords were never truly destroyed. One of their numbers sleeps below the knight's very fortress, and when an army of twisted tree monsters attacks the young initiates in his charge, Math decides to do the unthinkable. He wakes her up. I have enjoyed necromancy being in the Justice of King series that I've been reading. I like the dark elements that can pose and kind of how creative the author can be with necromancy, so I'm excited to see Jen Lyons tackle this topic. The first subgenre that I have for you guys is fantasy horror, and I have 3 books that I would like to talk to you guys about. This has been one of my favorite subgenres of fantasy within the past year, and so I was excited to find at least 3 books that I can share with you for the first 3 months. I haven't found any in January, so we're going to start in February with a book titled Weaving Shaw. This book features a young woman who has the ability to see the dead. It is a newer ability, and she is terrified that it's going to end up putting her into an asylum because people are scared of the ability and might not think that she's telling the truth about the things that she can see. And so she definitely kind of hides in the shadows. However, when her brother becomes ill, she makes a deal with kind of a shady figure using the only thing that she has, which is her ability. And so she ends up selling herself in a way, selling her powers to help this kind of seedy underbelly. And you get to follow her path through that. I think it sounds fascinating. And always when we have a character that can see the dead, I like how authors take, their own creative liberties to try and figure out how that would work. Are they only seeing the dead for a certain amount of time? Can they see all of the dead? Is it only certain ghosts that are around because of bad circumstances? I like all of the varieties and variables that come into play when we have a character that can speak to the dead. The next book under fantasy horror is definitely me revisiting a favorite author, and that is T. Kingfisher has Wolfworm being published in February. And all I know and all I kind of want to know about this is it follows a young woman who is or I don't know if she's young, actually. I just know that the main character is a female, and she is an illustrative scientist. And so she does a lot of scientific illustrations for any and every work that she can possibly do. But she's out of work, kind of down on her luck, and she does get an opportunity to come and work on a project with a scientist who is studying insects. And she jumps at the chance, goes to his hometown, and finds out that there's some nefarious things going on. Her predecessor is completely gone and has disappeared, and so there's some mystery there. You also have some weird things happening with the animals in the area. I love T. Kingfisher's fantasy horror. It's one of my favorite subgenres that she does in her works, and so I'm excited to get to this one. I have so many T. Kingfishers that I want to get to, but this one's high on my list. The next one I have is another debut, and it's called Honeysuckle. And the first little piece doesn't interest me because I didn't like one of these books and I am not really interested in the other, but I don't know, there's some things in the description that just make me want to read it, and I feel like it's going to be something I could potentially love. So the little synopsis piece that didn't get me is The Bear and the Nightingale meets Wayward. So I didn't enjoy Wayward. I haven't read The Bear and the Nightingale, but it says it's this enchanting, deeply compelling debut about love, power, autonomy, and consent. Which those words, I was like, okay, tell me more. Once upon a time, on the edge between meadow and forest, there was a lonely child with only his older sister for company. In exchange for being left in peace, his sister made him a playmate, Day, a girl woven from flowers and words. And for the first time, this boy, Rory, had a friend. Rory couldn't be happier until he learns that Day is a short-lived creature, and at the end of each season, she must be woven back together or fall apart gruesomely. And every time Day falls apart might be her last. As Rory and Day grow older, the line between friendship and romance begins to blur. Rory becomes desperate to break the cycle of bloom and decay. But the farther Rory pushes his research and experiments to lengthen Day's existence, the more Day begins to wonder how much control she really has over her life. I think it has the potential to be really impactful. I also think it has the potential to completely ruin itself, depending on how it handles certain things, because I could see myself pulling away from this if it gets too deep in the weeds. So I hope the author handles it in a way that I can handle and that I can really enjoy. But I think it's going to be an important read, to say the least. Moving into a more pleasant subgenre of fantasy, and that is cozy fantasy. I do have two cozy fantasies that I am very excited for. The first one I will pre-order because this is an author I've dearly loved, and the subject matter of this book is just calling to me, and that is Agnes Albert's Mystical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett. This sounds so cute. I don't even need to read anything else other than like the little clip at the beginning. It says, a woman who runs a cat rescue in the 1920s, Montreal, turns to a grouchy but charming wizard to help save the shelter in this heartwarming, cozy fantasy. I mean, cats, cozy fantasy, grouchy but charming wizards. Sign me up. It sounds like a dream. And I guess I did these in reverse order, so I apologize. This one is published in January. Heather Fawcett's is published in February, so just so you guys are aware. This one is called How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days. And I feel like I've had this on an anticipated release video before, but I couldn't find it. So maybe I'm making things up, but I feel like I looked and the expected publication date is January 2026, but maybe this was on a previous list and it just got pushed. So I still want to bring it to your attention because I think it sounds lovely. Anything to do with goblins, I want to read. I enjoy goblins. I don't know why. It's a fascination of mine. But this says, How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days is a comfort read fantasy romance between a halfling and a goblin. Imagine classic opposites attract rom-com taking place in those cozy scenes in the Hobbit's Shire from Lord of the Rings. Expect magical forests, interfering wizards, lots of home cooking, and maybe even a kiss at the harvest dance. I think it sounds very sweet, and I'm excited because goblins. So sign me up for this one. The next subgenre that I have is historical fantasy, and I'm going to start in February with an author that I really enjoyed last year with, I believe it was her debut, which was Green Teeth, and they are publishing another book called Nightshade and Oak next year. One of the things that I dearly loved about Green Teeth was the fact that it has this kind of fairy tale feel, like you're seeing characters out of myth and legend, and I think this one is going to follow suit. This says, an Iron Age goddess must grapple with becoming human. When Malt, the death goddess, is accidentally turned human by a wayward spell, she finds she's ill-equipped to deal with the trials of mortal life. After all, why would a goddess need to know how to gather food or light a fire? I really enjoyed the kind of exploration of the myths and legends surrounding creatures like this in Green Teeth, and so I think that this is just going to be a blast. I am really excited to see more from this author because I didn't hear a lot of people talking about Green Teeth. Everybody that I did hear talking about it absolutely loved it, but after the original kind of buzz, it kind of died down. And I know that doesn't mean that an author isn't going to publish again, but I was just a little afraid. So I'm glad to see this author back. The next book in this subcategory is No Man's Land by Richard Morgan. And this book is set in World War I, or at least right after World War I. And apparently after that war, some type of mythical fae come out and are destroying and taking over different cities. And they are also taking children and replacing them with changelings. The world is kind of in chaos. And you have a soldier in this who has kind of used his abilities to go and retrieve children and bring them back to families, and you're following his character. I don't know much more about it, but I think that it sounds interesting. I really like the pairing of fantasy with I know that it's historical fantasy, so like obviously it comes with the name, but I think that there are some books that I have seen that take real world time frames and real world actual events that happen and incorporate them into fantasy worlds or with fantasy creatures, and I really like that. H.G. Perry is a good example of doing that with the Scholar in the Last Fairy Door. I loved the fact that that was set during a war that actually happened, and it tilted your view of the war a little bit to make the fantasy world fit alongside it, but I just thought it was very fun. So I'm hoping to get that same type of feel and story with this book. Next we have The Geo Magician, and I read the first sentence of this little synopsis and was like, yes, I will be reading that. I'm going to be hard pressed not to purchase it. This doesn't come out until March, but it says, when a Victorian fossil hunter discovers a baby pterodactyl, she vows to protect him with the help of a fellow scholar, which is her former fiance, in this enchanting and transporting historical fantasy. I love the fact that we have a scientist involved. It kind of gives me Emily Wilde's vibes with that. We have a former fiance. Are we going to have like a rekindling? And then we have a little baby pterodactyl that we have in the midst, which I just think it sounds fun. So I'm excited about this one. The last historical fantasy I have on here is probably the one I'm most excited for, and that's called Entwined by H.M. Long. The reason I'm really excited about this one is I think it has a little bit of mystery, if not mystery, like bounty hunting, it seems. And it also has a sistership, or sisterhood, I guess, in it. It says 3 sisters join the hunt for a stolen magical artifact in this Gilded Age fantasy duology. So if you're not wanting a big series, this also might be something to look into. Ottilie Rushforth hides from the mighty Sorcerers Guild as a secretary to a has-been detective. She is entwined, which means threads of magical power run beneath her skin, and the guild would trap her in service. But Ottilie has a plan to escape the guild forever, and her estranged fiance, the enigmatic poet, soldier, and smuggler, Lewis, all she must do is track down the mysterious artifact and claim the bounty, and then leave the city forever. But Ottilie's sisters, Pretoria, a quick-witted sorceress and thief recently emerged from exile, and Madge, a guild mage to the core, appear to make equally unwelcome authors. A new life at the cost of everything she's ever wanted, or prestige and safety in a gilded cage. I think this sounds lovely, and the cover of it too just gives me kind of fantasy mystery vibes. It's not like in Goodreads, it doesn't say that it's a fantasy mystery, but I have high hopes. So we'll see what this one has in store. The next subgenre that I'm going to talk about is fantasy romance. I know, who am I? I only have 2 of them, and they're both from authors that I've enjoyed in the past, and so that's why they made this list, because I do still think that there is a chance that romantasy and fantasy romance can work for me. I just have to find books that do it the way that I want it to be done. So the first one is called Silver and Blood. This is by Jessie Mihalik, who is the author of Hunt the Stars, which is a sci-fi romance that I loved. And so I think that if I can continue to follow authors that I've enjoyed their romance books in the past, even if it's in a different genre, this could be a win. This says, on a deadly mission to kill the mythical beast that has haunted her woods, a desperate mage finds that her fate is intertwined with a handsome and powerful man who saves her. There is something in the woods. Untrained and barely armed, Relia reluctantly enters the woods to kill a deadly beast that has been attacking her fellow villagers, as she's the only mage available. Or so she thought. When one beast turns into 2, she fears her death is at hand, but unexpected aid from a scarred, strikingly handsome man with dangerous moonlit magic means a second chance at life, and an opportunity to learn more about her own fickle power. If this was not by Jessie Mihalik, I don't think I would be picking it up, because the synopsis just kind of sounds, it's intriguing. I do like the idea of a haunted forest and a mage that's kind of struggling, but I'm hoping that this author can bring this romance in clutch for me. We'll see. That one's published in January. Another one published in March is by Alana Andrews, who wrote the Clean Sweep series that I started last year that I really enjoyed. And this is called This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. The kind of hook for this says, a page-turning, unforgettable fantasy set in a city peopled with ruffians, spies, malcontents, and murderers. Experience out-of-this-world adventure and dangerous politics as Maggie tries to survive waking up in her favorite fictional world. So there's a couple of things that I love about this. I do really like Alona Andrews' ability to create a world that has a whole bunch of fantastical creatures working together. In the clean sweep we had, we had a whole bunch of different elements and supernatural things that were happening and going on, as well as your kind of typical werewolf vampire vibe as well. And I just found it really fun. And we are set in a fictional world. She wakes up in a book, I guess. So I'm excited about this one. I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. Moving on to the sci-fi genre, the first book that I'm going to mention is a little cheaty because it's actually the traditional publication of a book that already came out in 2021, but I still thought I would shout it out because I think it sounds intriguing. This is called Artifact Space, and it's published in January. This says, out in the darkness of space, something is targeting the great ships. With their vast holds and a crew that could fill a city, the great ships are the lifeblood of the human-occupied space, transporting an unimaginable volume and value of goods from the greatest human orbital all the way to the trade point, which is a trade for a whole bunch of different races that exist and alien species. It's always been Marka's dream to achieve the near impossible, escape her upbringing and venture into space. So someone who is wishing to reach the stars. I don't know what caught my eye about it, but I think I'm just kind of in a sci-fi mood. So when I saw this one and I saw that it was being picked up by a traditional publisher, I was like, I want to give it a try. Next is a book that I had a hard time finding, so I don't think it's very well known, but I am intrigued by it, and that is When Worlds Collide. It's the Celestial Code series book. It's by Gracie Reynolds, and it comes out in February. The reason that it intrigues me is I have read a book with a very similar premise, but it was a mystery thriller book called My Murderer. This says, this is a gripping story about a clone who must solve her original's murder, which is essentially what's happening in My Murderer. And I know that this is going to focus on different things because this is deemed a sci-fi, whereas the other one, as I said, was deemed more of a mystery. It was mystery sci-fi. It did have sci-fi elements in it, but I'm intrigued to read this type of story or this kind of synopsis again to see what a new author brings to the table with a story that I just find really intriguing. Next, also out in February, is After the Fall by Edward Ashton. And this is an author that I've really enjoyed in the past. I enjoy his kind of quirky humor. The books don't take themselves too seriously, but they do also cover serious topics, if that makes sense. He wrote Mickey 7 and The Fourth Consort, which was a favorite book of mine. It's over on my shelf, so you can barely see it. But I want to read more by this author. So let's figure out what this one's going to be about. It says part alien invasion, part buddy comedy, and part workplace satire. I'm already sold. Would humans really make great pets? Humans must be silent. Humans must be obedient. Humans must be good. All his life, John has tried to live by those rules. Most days, it's not too difficult. 120 years after the fall, 100 years after the Greys swept in to pick up the last dredges of humanity out of the wreckage of a ruined world, John has found himself bonded to Martok Barden, one of the good Greys. Sure, Martok is broke, homeless, and borderline manic, but he's always treated John like an actual person, and sometimes like a friend. And it's a better deal than most humans get. I'm intrigued with this world. I want to know what exactly we're focusing on. Once again, we have this element of serious topic, but you also have some comedy mixed in as well. I just think it's going to be great. Next, we have The Forest on the Edge of Time, which is touted as a time travel climate fiction. So I'm game for that. This says, recruited by the mysterious Project Curios to change history and save the future from an ecological disaster, Echo and Hazel are transported through time to opposite worlds. Echo's work as a healer's assistant in ancient Athens, embroiled in dangerous politics and wild philosophy, and Hazel is the last human alive in a laboratory on a polluted island with nothing but tiny robots and an untrustworthy AI for company. It sounds fantastic. It sounds like it covers really important topics, and I'm interested to see how they're going to tie everything together in the end. The last sci-fi I have for you guys is called Jitterbug, and it comes out in March. This says, in this twisty, action-packed adventure, a crew of bounty hunters find themselves ensnared in a conspiracy on the very fringes of a devastated solar system. Jupiter and Saturn are gone, and a mysterious force has built a huge habitable sphere from their ashes. When criminals try to lose themselves on this new frontier, bounty hunters like Copernicus Brown and his crew and his sentient ship, Jitterbug, get paid to hunt them down. But when Brown rescues Amber Roth, a sole survivor of a pirate attack, the Jitterbug and her crew find themselves targeted by a powerful political faction who wants control of the data chip hidden in Roth's stomach. It sounds a little bit like the Leviathan Wakes series. I haven't read that series, but the synopsis just sounds similar. And that is a book, that's a series that I'm interested in reading, and I think I'm going to get to next year. So, I mean, I'm in. The last genre that I have for you guys is horror, and I only have one book. It was published in February, and I think it could be a potential for my favorite book of the year if it does the things that it says it's going to do well. It's called She Made Herself a Monster, and it comes out on February 10th. I'm just going to read you a little bit of the synopsis, but then I want to point you to some things that it says about the book that I just think sound fantastic. A dark-hued gothic gem of a debut in 19th century Bulgaria, a self-proclaimed vampire slayer, actually a traveling con artist, joins forces with a teenage girl to create a monster deadly enough to vanquish their own demons. The part that really got me, though, it says, inspired by Slavic folklore, which I have loved books with Slavic folklore in the past, concocts a clever mixture of witchery, ghost stories, heresy, and deception to spin a feminist fable about agency and the power of collective action. It's a haunting and astoundingly cathartic tale about two women who will stop at nothing to take control of their fate. And that's the part that made me absolutely want to pick up this book. So I hope that it blows me out of the water. So those are the 20 books that I am very excited to get to in the beginning of the year. Hopefully my library will have a copy of all of them and I won't have to hunt them down, but we shall see. Only time will tell. Once again, if you guys have any books that you are super excited to read in 2026, any anticipated releases that you think I missed, please leave them in the comments for me because I would love to know what other books I need to be looking up. And if you're not feeling chatty but you still want to let me know that you're here, leave me a little Frankenstein emoji if they have one in the comments down below for that last book when you're creating a monster. That's what I was thinking of. So that's just to let me know that you guys are here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening and I will see you in the next one. Bye!